Have you ever wondered why we have the freedom to make choices in life, yet there are times when it feels like our will doesn't quite align with a greater plan from the universe or God? You might feel as if you're in control of your life, and yet, at times, you sense something bigger, something beyond your personal choices leading you down a different path. Why does this happen? Is it possible that there's a larger purpose, a divine plan, that your personal will doesn't always understand? We've all been there, struggling to make decisions, feeling torn between the path we want to take and the sense that life is pushing us in a different direction. It's natural to question where our free will fits into the larger picture of the universe or God's plan. Sometimes, our desires and actions seem at odds with what life presents, and that tension can leave us wondering about the balance between personal choice and a higher purpose. Today, we're going to explore the difference between your will, the freedom you have to make choices and control your life, and God's will, the divine plan or purpose that is believed to be unfolding in your life, even when you can't always see it clearly. The key question we'll address is, can we live according to God's will while still maintaining our personal free will? Your personal will is essentially your ability to make choices based on your desires, goals, and preferences. It's the freedom that gives you control over your actions and decisions. On the other hand, God's will is often viewed as the grand design or purpose that God has for you, which may not always align with your personal desires. The tension between these two forces is a universal experience for many people, and it often raises the question of how we can live purposefully when it feels like we're being guided by something larger than ourselves. Understanding the difference between your will and God's will is crucial for leading a purposeful life. It helps you navigate moments of confusion and conflict when your desires don't align with what you feel is the right path. Recognizing this distinction allows you to see that both your personal choices and divine guidance can coexist, and in fact, when they are in harmony, they can help you move forward with clarity and confidence. By understanding both your free will and God's will, you can find a balance that empowers you to make decisions that align with both your personal values and your spiritual path. It's not about giving up your freedom of choice. It's about learning to embrace the flow of divine purpose while making decisions that resonate with who you truly are. Ultimately, when we align our choices with a higher purpose, we experience a deeper sense of peace, fulfillment, and direction in life. At the core of being human lies personal will, the ability to make choices, set intentions, and take actions based on your own desires, goals, and values. Personal will is what allows us to shape our lives, make decisions about how we want to live, and create the paths we follow. It is the driving force behind our ability to choose between different options, whether big or small, and act on those choices without being coerced by external forces or constraints. Personal will isn't just about the ability to say yes or no. It's about freedom and agency, the power to make decisions independently and follow through with them. Whether it's choosing what to have for breakfast, deciding which career to pursue, or choosing a life partner, personal will influences everything. In its purest form, personal will represents the freedom to act in a way that reflects your internal desires and goals. However, this concept of personal will is closely tied to responsibility. Every choice you make has consequences, and personal will comes with the responsibility to manage those consequences, both for yourself and the people around you. Exercising personal will means that you not only have the freedom to choose, but also must take ownership of the outcomes that stem from your decisions. One of the most defining aspects of human existence is our right to choose. From the moment we wake up to the time we go to sleep, we are faced with decisions ranging from the seemingly trivial to the deeply consequential. Whether it's deciding what to wear, how to spend our time, or which values to uphold, personal will shapes every aspect of our daily life. On a smaller scale, personal will guides our daily routines and interactions. What we eat, how we spend our free time, and who we interact with are all choices made by exercising our will. But on a larger scale, personal will plays a crucial role in deciding the trajectory of our lives. Big life decisions, such as what career to pursue, where to live, or who to marry, require a clear understanding of one's values, desires, and goals. In addition to shaping the course of our lives, personal will is essential in self-awareness. Through the act of making choices, we get to know ourselves better. We define who we are and what matters most to us. This ongoing process of decision-making is key to personal development. It helps us discover what aligns with our deepest truths and allows us to grow and evolve as individuals. Yet, the ability to make decisions based on personal will doesn't exist in a vacuum. Our decisions are often influenced by a variety of factors: our upbringing, society, relationships, and even our environment. While we may believe we are entirely free to choose, our will is not always as free as we think. The connection between freedom and responsibility is central to the concept of personal will. While personal will grants us the freedom to choose, that freedom always comes with a responsibility to face the consequences of those choices. Exercising personal will is not a one-way street. It's a delicate balance between acting freely and bearing the responsibility for what follows. When we make choices, we often consider what's best for ourselves, but we must also recognize that our decisions impact the people around us. Whether in our personal relationships, our professional lives, or in society, our choices ripple out and create consequences. This is where responsibility comes in. We are not just responsible for the outcomes of our decisions in isolation, but also for how they affect others. For example, deciding to change careers may bring personal fulfillment, but it might also require sacrifices from loved ones or shift the dynamics of your relationships. Personal development involves understanding the weight of the decisions we make. It's about learning to recognize how our choices contribute to our personal growth and how they shape our character. It's about becoming aware that with every choice, there's a responsibility to think through the potential consequences and be willing to face them. The freedom to choose is a privilege that should be exercised with thoughtfulness and self-awareness. This brings us to one of the most profound questions about personal will. Do we truly have the freedom to make choices, or are we being guided by forces beyond our understanding? This is the core of the dilemma surrounding free will. At first glance, it may seem that we have the complete freedom to make decisions. We wake up, choose what we'll do that day, and act based on our personal desires. We pride ourselves on our independence and the power to control our own destiny. However, upon deeper reflection, many people feel that, at times, our will is not entirely our own. External factors, whether societal expectations, cultural norms, or even spiritual or religious beliefs, can influence and shape our decisions. Consider the way society often frames our choices. Whether it's expectations around career, family, or success, these external pressures can push us into decisions that seem less about our true desires and more about meeting societal standards. For instance, you may feel compelled to pursue a career that others deem respectable or worthwhile, but when you listen deeply to your inner self, you may feel that this path doesn't align with your true calling. Furthermore, unseen forces, whether you interpret them as divine guidance, fate, or a deeper sense of connection to the universe, can also seem to shape the choices you make. Have you ever had a feeling that a particular event or encounter was meant to happen, or that you were being gently nudged in a particular direction? These moments of synchronicity, or gut feelings, can make it seem as if there is something greater guiding your decisions, even though you believe you are acting on your free will. This paradox, the balance between the freedom of will and the forces that seem to shape or guide it, raises the question of how free our will truly is. Are we the architects of our own lives? Or are we simply actors on a stage set by forces beyond our control? In this section, we've explored the nature of personal will and the complex relationship between freedom and responsibility. Our will is the driving force behind the decisions we make, allowing us to navigate life and shape our future. However, this freedom does not come without consequences. Our choices impact ourselves and those around us. The real challenge lies in recognizing the balance between our ability to choose and the external influences that affect our decisions. The question of whether our will is truly free or shaped by external forces remains a topic of philosophical and spiritual inquiry. As we continue to explore the nature of free will, we must consider how external influences, whether societal, spiritual, or unconscious, play a role in shaping the path we choose. And in doing so, we begin to understand that while our personal will is powerful, it exists within a larger framework of forces, both seen and unseen, that guide us along our journey. God's will refers to the divine plan or purpose that God has set for each individual's life. It is the overarching, spiritual guidance that aligns our actions and decisions with a higher, more transcendent design. Many people, regardless of their faith tradition, believe that each person is part of a greater cosmic plan, a journey that is shaped by forces beyond our understanding and control. At its core, God's will is about purpose. It is the belief that our lives have meaning that transcends our individual desires, and that there is a greater plan at work. God's will often involves not only the big moments in our lives, the major decisions and milestones, but also the smaller details, the everyday moments, that are subtly woven into the fabric of our existence. When we talk about God's will, we are acknowledging that there is a divine design that goes beyond our personal preferences, and that our lives are part of a larger tapestry that has been intentionally created for us. This plan is not random. It is intentional, purposeful, and, for many, it is a path that leads to greater fulfillment and alignment with a higher calling. Spiritual guidance is a crucial aspect of understanding God's will. Many believe that God's will manifests in the form of guidance through intuition, conscience, signs, sacred texts, or the words of spiritual leaders. This guidance helps us to stay connected to the divine plan, nudging us in directions that align with our highest potential. For those who believe in God, the sense that there is a higher power orchestrating their journey offers comfort, clarity, and purpose as they move through life's challenges. In most religious traditions, God's will is not just about what happens in clear, direct actions. It's often woven into the fabric of the events, challenges, and tests that people face in their lives. These challenges may appear to be difficult, painful, or even unfair, but many people believe that they are part of God's greater plan, a manifestation of something higher that we may not always understand in the moment. Consider the idea that struggles and obstacles in life may be seen as tests or opportunities for growth within God's will. A challenging situation may feel like a setback, but for those who trust in God's will, they often see it as a step on the path to spiritual maturity. These challenges might not be easy to understand or accept right away, but faith traditions often teach that through hardship, people can develop resilience, strength, and wisdom, which help them to align more closely with their divine purpose. For example, many people believe that the difficulties they face in life are not random but are divinely orchestrated to teach them lessons, refine their character, and help them become the person they were meant to be. The difficult moments that seem to go against our personal desires often carry a divine purpose, even if we cannot fully comprehend it at the time. Spiritual traditions often encourage people to trust that God's will is unfolding according to a plan that is much bigger than their own understanding. From a Christian perspective, the Bible teaches that God's ways are often mysterious and that His plan for us is perfect. Even when we face trials, we are urged to have faith that these struggles have meaning within the larger story that God is creating in our lives. While many believe in God's will, it's important to note that free will still plays an essential role in how we navigate our lives. God's will may guide us toward a certain purpose or destination, but we still have the freedom to choose how we approach that purpose. The divine plan is often seen as a framework, but it's up to us to decide how we will live it out. This intersection of free will and God's will is a delicate balance. We have the freedom to choose our actions, and yet, we are invited to recognize and align with the divine plan that may be unfolding for us. This doesn't mean that we are passive actors in life. Rather, we are active participants in a journey where we can make choices that either bring us closer to our divine purpose or lead us off course. Consider the example of a person who feels a strong calling to pursue a career in medicine. This calling might be perceived as part of God's plan for them, but the specific steps they take to get there, what school they attend, who they study with, and how they interact with patients are still decisions that they choose for themselves. In this way, they are co-creators of their journey, guided by God's will, but still exercising their freedom to choose how they fulfill that calling. The beauty of this balance is that, even though God's will may have a certain direction for us, it leaves room for us to grow, evolve, and experience life in our unique way. Our choices matter. They shape the path we walk, even as we trust in a higher design that guides us through every twist and turn. One of the most profound challenges in life is the tension between our personal desires and what we believe to be God's will for us. There are times when our personal will, the things we want, the plans we make, the paths we wish to take, seems to be at odds with what we perceive as the divine plan for us. These moments can lead to frustration, confusion, and a sense of internal conflict. For example, imagine a person who feels called to be a teacher, but they have a personal desire to pursue a career in the arts. They may feel a deep inner conflict between the practical decision to follow their spiritual calling as a teacher and their personal passion for the arts. In these moments, it may feel as though the path God is guiding them toward is at odds with their own desires. However, understanding that God has a bigger plan for us can help us overcome these moments of internal conflict. Sometimes, God's will doesn't involve an immediate answer or clear direction. It's about trusting the process and knowing that every decision, even one that seems to contradict our desires, is part of a larger plan. Faith traditions often teach that when we surrender to God's will, even when it's difficult to understand, we find peace and clarity. This surrender is not about abandoning our desires, but about understanding that God's will is perfect and will lead us to a deeper sense of fulfillment. Finding harmony between personal will and God's will involves recognizing that we don't always see the whole picture. Our personal desires are valid and important, but sometimes, the divine plan involves growth through discomfort, learning through challenges, and trusting in divine timing. Understanding that both our personal will and God's will can coexist, and that we can honor both, brings a sense of peace and alignment in the journey. In this process, prayer, meditation, and spiritual reflection can help us tune into God's guidance. When we align our decisions with the larger spiritual plan, we experience fulfillment and a deeper connection to our purpose. Trusting that God's will is unfolding perfectly helps us release the need for control and find peace in the unfolding of our lives. In this section, we've explored the concept of God's will, how it serves as a divine plan for each person's life, how it intersects with our free will, and how the tension between our desires and God's guidance can sometimes create conflict. However, we also discussed how understanding the divine plan can lead to a greater sense of purpose and alignment, helping us navigate the complexities of life with faith and trust. Recognizing that God's will is both present in the challenges and guiding us through our choices allows us to live with a deeper sense of peace. We are active participants in fulfilling that plan, choosing how we will engage with the divine design in a way that is true to our deepest calling. At the heart of spiritual growth and personal fulfillment lies the delicate balance between free will and divine guidance. As human beings, we are granted the freedom to make choices, pursue our dreams, and shape our lives according to our desires. This freedom is a gift, one that allows us to explore, create, and carve our own paths. However, aligning our personal will with God's will requires an intentional process of understanding and growth. It's about discovering how our desires, decisions, and actions can align with a greater divine plan that goes beyond our personal understanding. To harmonize our will with God's will, we must first recognize that there is a larger plan at work, a purpose that transcends our individual desires. Understanding that our lives are part of a bigger picture can help us find meaning and clarity in our choices. The journey of aligning our personal will with God's will involves cultivating awareness and trust in the divine path that is unfolding before us. We may have specific dreams and goals that we want to pursue, but it's when we recognize God's greater plan that we are able to understand how these personal desires can be integrated into His divine framework. This journey is not always easy. It may involve moments of doubt, confusion, and struggle, especially when the path we desire doesn't seem to align with what we believe God has planned for us. However, it is in these moments of tension that we are called to deepen our faith and trust that God's plan for us is not only bigger but also better than what we might have envisioned. By learning to listen for God's guidance and adjusting our choices accordingly, we move toward a life that feels more purposeful, fulfilling, and aligned with our spiritual calling. Harmonizing your will with God's will is an ongoing journey, one that involves constant reflection, prayer, and alignment of actions with divine guidance. As we embark on this journey, we learn how to embrace God's will while maintaining our own freedom of choice, allowing us to live with greater peace and understanding. One of the most common misconceptions about aligning with God's will is that it requires us to abandon our personal freedom. Many people assume that living according to God's will means submitting all of our desires, dreams, and decisions completely to divine authority, as if we have no part in the process. However, living in alignment with God's will does not mean giving up personal freedom or choice. It means transforming that freedom into actions that serve a higher purpose. The key to this process lies in transforming our desires into something that honors our spiritual journey. God's will doesn't demand that we abandon our dreams or desires. Rather, it asks us to align those desires with His greater plan for us. This alignment is not about rigid control or restriction. It's about finding balance between pursuing our passions and recognizing how those passions can contribute to the greater good. For instance, if you have a dream of becoming a successful entrepreneur, following God's will doesn't mean abandoning that dream. Instead, it involves seeking His guidance in how to pursue that dream, ensuring that your actions are grounded in integrity, compassion, and service to others. It means adjusting your decisions to reflect not just your personal gain, but also how you can contribute to the welfare of others and align your work with God's broader purpose. The process of living according to God's will, while maintaining personal free will, requires discernment, the ability to recognize when our desires and actions align with God's plan and when they veer off course. By praying for guidance, seeking spiritual wisdom, and being open to divine influence, we learn how to make decisions that serve not just our personal goals, but also the greater good. For example, you may have a strong desire to travel the world, but you might question whether this is in alignment with God's will. By seeking divine guidance, you may receive insight into how your travel can not only expand your personal horizons, but also allow you to serve others, whether through sharing your experiences, helping communities in need, or deepening your spiritual practice. Thus, aligning with God's will doesn't mean giving up your freedom to travel. It's about recognizing how your personal will can be used for a greater, divine purpose. Recognizing God's guidance in your life is a crucial part of aligning your personal will with His will. Many people wonder how they can know for sure when God is guiding them and what it feels like to receive divine direction. Divine guidance can come in a variety of forms, and understanding how to recognize it is key to living in alignment with God's will. Signs of divine guidance are often subtle, but they are unmistakable when we are open to receiving them. Here are some common ways that God's guidance can appear in your life. 1. Internal feelings and intuition. One of the most common ways people experience God's guidance is through a deep, internal sense of knowing. This could be a feeling in your heart, a sense of peace, or a gut feeling that guides your decisions. This internal voice might not always be loud or clear, but it provides a quiet certainty that helps you make choices in alignment with God's will. Often, people describe these feelings as a still, small voice that leads them in a direction they know is right. 2. Unexpected events or opportunities. Divine guidance can also manifest through unexpected events or opportunities that seem to come out of nowhere. These events may appear to be coincidences at first, but upon closer reflection, they may align perfectly with the path you are meant to walk. For example, you might unexpectedly meet someone who offers you the exact advice or support you need at a critical juncture in your life. These moments can serve as signs that you are being guided toward the next step on your journey. 3. Supportive people. God often sends people into our lives to offer guidance and encouragement. These individuals may appear at just the right moment, providing wisdom, advice, or practical help that you need. Whether through family, friends, mentors, or spiritual leaders, people often act as vessels of divine guidance. If you feel uplifted or inspired after a conversation with someone, this may be God's way of using that person to show you the direction you should take. 4. Peace amidst confusion. When you are aligned with God's will, you may experience a sense of peace that transcends external circumstances. Even when you face challenges or uncertainty, a deep inner peace can provide reassurance that you are on the right path. This peace is often described as a sense of calm amidst chaos, allowing you to move forward with confidence, knowing that God is leading you. 5. Scripture and prayer. Many people find that God speaks to them through scripture or prayer. When you are seeking guidance, verses from sacred texts can provide insight and clarity. Similarly, during times of prayer or meditation, God may provide visions, thoughts, or insights that help you understand what you are meant to do. By staying attuned to these signs and trusting in the guidance you receive, you can make decisions that are more closely aligned with God's plan for your life. Recognizing God's guidance is about cultivating awareness and being open to receiving divine influence, no matter how it comes. In this section, we've explored the delicate process of harmonizing our personal will with God's will. We discussed how we can live according to God's will while still maintaining our personal freedom. It's not about abandoning our desires or our agency, but rather about transforming our personal choices into actions that serve a higher, divine purpose. By recognizing God's guidance in our lives, whether through inner feelings, unexpected events, supportive people, or spiritual practices, we can align ourselves more closely with God's plan for us. This alignment brings peace, purpose, and fulfillment, allowing us to live lives that honor both our personal freedom and our divine calling. As we continue to live with this balance of free will and divine guidance, we move toward a life of greater clarity, confidence, and purpose, a life that reflects both our unique desires and the higher plan that God has for us. The difference between your will and God's will lies in the fact that you have the right to decide your path, but God has already set a divine plan for you. While you have the freedom to make choices, His will offers guidance, helping you navigate your journey with purpose. When we learn how to harmonize our personal will with God's will, life becomes more purposeful and meaningful. It's not about losing control or freedom, but about aligning our desires with a higher calling, leading to fulfillment and peace. Start listening to the signs within and around you. When you feel God's guidance, trust it and allow it to lead you. The more you align yourself with His will, the clearer your path will become. This alignment brings peace, clarity, and helps you fulfill your unique role in the world. Trust that when you walk in alignment with God's will, everything unfolds with a sense of purpose and divine timing. If this message resonated with you, please share this video with others who may need to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so we can continue exploring how to live in alignment with God's will and our true selves. Let's continue to walk this journey together, guided by divine purpose.